All right, I'm talking with Sergio DaSilva, who he caught my eye. Was it last night or a couple nights ago? You said you got a fight coming up. I know it's early in the stages of the fight news, but Sergio DaSilva. Last time I saw you fought, I was actually looking for the pictures before we started talking. Last time I saw you fought was in New York when Bellator first came over. So I mean, and when I know we talked pizza, jujitsu fights.
Pizza.
Yeah. So I mean, now we're finally talking about you. You're first of all, I know I talked to you before we started recording that I wanted to talk to you about how you handled the whole pandemic situation, given we're kind of in the same location. You coach, you have students and stuff. So can you just give us an update on how you're doing out in New York, which was like the epicenter, obviously the biggest numbers in the state?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, thank Ed for taking the time. I appreciate it. I'm sure I see a lot of good things you're doing for the MMA community and taking the time to interview me and doing this. I appreciate you and people who are going to listen. To answer your question with the pandemic, I mean, you're a jujitsu guy. You know, it for us. It's probably the hardest thing because it's not like other businesses where everyone's talking about all these businesses that took a hit, and I'm not even speaking about it on the financial aspect, just for the love of the sport that we how are you able to social distance and be 6 feet away if you want to train jujitsu?
Yeah.
That's literally impossible. So um, that to me met the mental aspect of it, especially early on, was the hardest part because having to think about like shit, how are we like I can't see myself my life, and I'm sure you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you without training jujitsu, right? Like I can't live my life without like jujitsu is such a big part of my life. I actually just got it tattooed on my fingers, and I've been in martial arts since I was 4 years old, and that to me that was the hardest part. You know, like thinking about how are we gonna go back from this. And I know I don't want to make light of the situation in terms of like I know there's a lot of people that are sick and dying, and I don't want to go, oh look, you know, look at this guy. All he's thinking about is himself and training. But that's a big part of my life. You know, some people there are other things that are important to them, but I don't
Yeah.
know where I'd be without mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu. So having to maneuver and think about how in the beginning stages of how are we going to get back to this while there were people dying. You know, like I said, I don't want to sound selfish, but that was a big part to me. Like, how are we going to ever train again if we're not even allowed to stand next to people and the girls are getting food to survive? How are we going to be able to, grapple with someone? So
Yeah.
that was really hard early on. But as the times went on, the months went on, the days went by, and people start, the situation started to get. It looks like it's getting a little better. You know, like you touched on, New York was the hardest hit area. There was 900 people dying a day in New York, man.
Mm,
That's insane. Imagine you turn on
yeah.
TV, 800 people died in New York. Right?
Yeah.
That's so it seems like they got a control. I know they're talking about a second wave. I mean, look, I'm a big guy. I'm a firm believer. I don't like to suffer in anticipation. I always like to think positive. So I want to think that we're going to come up with a cure, a vaccine, or we're just going to figure out that we're able to live with this using precautions. And I think we'll be all right. I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, man. I mean, that it's the only way you can because we all gotta try to move forward as best we can. And one thing, just I mean, I want to add to what you just said. For me, you know, people talk about coping mechanisms, and training in jujitsu especially has been probably the most therapeutic thing I've ever done in my whole life as far as dealing with anything. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So, I mean, it's hard to stay away. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think I said it on the podcast that I do too. I already started training again with a select group of guys. It's me and like four other dudes.
Yeah.
It's the same people over and over. That's the safest we can do it. But some have been tested and they're negative, whatever. But I mean, uh, my school actually had to close its doors like 2 weeks ago. So, that was kind of the catalyst that made us say, you know what, we can't sit idle anymore. And like you said, I know it's a little selfish and stuff like that, but it is how I cope with stress, and it's sometimes you got to do what's best for you. You
I
know.
Yeah, and I think that just to go touch back what you said, I think a lot of people who it's usually the people who are not involved in the martial arts world that don't realize how important and how the word we keep hearing now is essential, right? How
Yeah.
important jiu-jitsu is. I have kids who are like literally would be on the streets if not for jiu-jitsu. You know, like what are
Yeah.
they do? I don't know what they're doing. I have kids that are overweight, and I don't say just kids, adults as well. Overweight, high blood pressure, diabetes, all that stuff. And when they were consistently training, weight went down, stress level went down. That's the silent killer, stress. A lot of people don't talk about. If you're able to go out and roll and get all of that frustration out, you know, I don't have to tell you, but the people listening, the mats will humble you, man. Right?
Yeah.
The mats will humble you, right? The most. Mats don't lie, right? You can say whatever you want. You want to be arrogant, you want to have an ego, get on the mats.
Yeah.
That'll straighten it out right now, right? Everybody. I'm a black belt. I believe you're a black belt as well, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
You know more than that, right? There is never someone that you can say won't humble you. I don't care
Yeah.
how good you are. I've trained with the best guys in the world. You know, I don't have to name that, but you know, people know I've trained with literally the best black belts in the entire world, and I've had success with a lot of them, but a lot of them whooped my ass. I went home thinking, man, I kind of want like my belt is like I felt worthless because I was like, how did that guy just toy with me that way? And don't get me wrong, I'm not, you know, I've had my moments too, but there's always somebody, right? So on that aspect of it, it's essential, right? To be able, people don't realize how much being able to get on a mat and train and the camaraderie that we have and how
Yeah.
important that is to your everyday activity. And there's only so much you can do at home, right? The first month is giggles. All right, we're having time away from work. You know, the first week, first
Hmm.
couple of weeks, first month. Now we're what 4 months in, and it's just
Yeah.
eventually like there's only so many burpees you can do. There are only so many jumping jacks you can do, squats before you actually want to really go out and train. So similar to you, I've been training with a select group of guys, um, and I think that's the best we can do right now.
Hey, you know what's funny? I just jumped in my head because you mentioned it. Like your group of guys is obviously going to be on another level than the group of guys I'm training with. Because
Yeah,
being someone that's fought professionally, and you just like everybody knows that you're connected with the pro fighters that fight out in New York. So you tweeted that you got some fight news coming. I know you can't say a lot, but I mean,
yeah.
do you think the state of? I mean, when you look at the state of sports and like where we're at, especially combat sports, is it because of what we're in, the opportunity was created for you, or did you seek it out? Because I know you were kind of, I mean, we've communicated a lot. I know sometimes it would be you were getting you were set with coaching and teaching.
Yeah.
Um, did
The
it call you
hardest,
back or?
yeah. Well, the hardest thing for any fighter, I think, and I don't want to speak on like to say generalized, but I think the hardest thing about it is we are so competitive, and when this is part of your life, it's so hard to walk away. I've tried so many times. Say, all right, I'm just gonna focus on coaching and training guys, but you always get that itch. And I'm the type of guy that if I'm in good shape and I'm training well with, you know, again, without name dropping, but if I'm training well with guys who are in the UFC, guys who are at the top level of the game, and
Yeah.
I'm doing fine and I'm in shape and I feel like, damn, I got one more. You know, like it's always like, all right, one more, one more. I think that the hardest thing, you know, to answer your question, did they come and go? Yeah, you know, without going into too much details because I can't. The fight, I haven't signed a contract yet, so I don't like to
Mhm.
speak about it until it's signed and until I might not even get an opponent, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they reached out to me and they were like, you know, we're gonna do this show with no crowd. It's gonna be in the summer, regionally. It might be in PA or New Jersey, and there's gonna be no crowd, which is to me, I thrive off of the crowd.
Yeah.
I've always been since I was an amateur. I've always been a huge ticket seller. I've always had tremendous support. I've always had a lot of people come all the way from New York City, all the way down to Atlantic City, where I did most of my career. 200-300 people I've brought into to fight. It would be a weird situation for me because I've never fought without a crowd. I'm looking forward to it. So I mean, like going back to your question is, yeah, they reached out to me. I don't think the situation was because the pandemic is why they reached out to me. I just think that they want promotions are going to want to stay somewhat relevant, and the
Hmm.
fighters need to fight, right? You
Yeah.
just fighters need to fight, and I think that especially with everything going on now, there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be looking to fight. I
Yeah.
think they're looking to match guys up, and I think that I'm an interesting story, and I think that having me on the card is probably a smart idea.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely something that like you said, I mean, fighters need to fight. I mean, a lot of folks, when this whole thing started, there was the people talk about the fear and the safety and stuff like that. But that's everyone has their own mentality and outlook on something. And when
Listen,
you
you
look,
want not to cut you off. You want to
go
talk about
ahead.
fear and safety. I'm not trying to make it over dramatic, but no offense, and I have total respect for everyone who's passed, due to the COVID virus. But I think I, if you're successfully multiple times fought and literally sign a contract to lock yourself in a cage with another human being, knowing that there's really, I don't think the COVID is gonna keep us away from it. I think we have bigger fears in the back of our minds than the COVID.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's funny. It's funny you bringing that up because, like, it's even if there was no pandemic, what you do is still super dangerous.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
I think I'm more fearful of getting fucking my head. Oh, excuse my language. Getting my head kicked off than I am of
yeah,
the COVID.
yeah, no, I hear you,
I
man.
think that's a bigger
Uh,
concern.
so I mean, I gotta ask you something because I know you made note of it, and I tweeted back to you because I was actually looking for the file. I'm looking through the file before we started talking. So back, because you fought, I mean, which had to be, I know the fight didn't go your way, but it had to be a great feeling for you, fighting on that first Bellator card in New York City in Madison
Oh
Square
man,
Garden. But were you joking around at the weigh-ins thing? I remember when did the thing. I didn't know if you were joking or what, but you had hinted at it, and I was like, I know I got video or pictures of that somewhere.
yeah, about the scale, about moving
Yeah,
around.
yeah,
Yeah, so long story short, not to get into the full details about that, I had a little issue with the weight cut for that
hmm
fight, and let life, life happens and things happen. I'm not the first, I'm not the last. You see Daniel Cormier, world champion, use a towel, right? No one talks about that, right? Before
yeah,
I did, DC did,
yeah,
right? So you get there, right? You're trying to make weight. You know that the New York Commission is very strict, right? I've been fighting professionally for a decade now. I'm a huge Knicks fan. I'm a New York City guy.
yeah,
New MMA, a lot of people, some people don't know, was illegal in New York until what,
yeah.
5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
They lifted the ban in 2016.
All right, 4 years ago.
Yeah,
I didn't know if I would ever be able to fight in my hometown. I
yeah,
literally was fighting professionally without being able to fight in New York. So I was traveling to fight. They come to New York. I'm overweight. I'm thinking, shit, if that number on that scale, I literally did everything in my power to make that weight. I
yeah.
knew that they could cut my fight. I was going to do whatever I had to do to make sure that fight happened you know. So yeah, I was joking on the scale after the fact that that was the ceremonial weigh-in before
Mm,
the one I had issue with. After I was fully hydrated, I said, you know what, the fight's on, man. I don't give a shit.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, that was definitely a big time for us in the Northeast, especially if in the New York area, because that was a big deal, man. I mean, I remember that. I remember that whole fight week like it was yesterday,
Yeah,
which is why I know I have the file, and everything. But uh, a lot's happened since then. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the stuff that happened after that. I know we talked about it before we started recording, but obviously you were there was a time where you couldn't fight because you got involved in something else. So whatever you want to say about that, I mean, folks are going to want to talk about the whole bank robbery thing. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. I mean, you can say the floor is yours to speak on that before we talk about moving forward.
yeah, absolutely, man. So as you know, without getting into too much details, I was accused of a pretty serious crime. I was facing up to 25 years in prison. If not, shout out to my man David Fish, who's my attorney. That guy saved my life, and you know, it's unfortunate what I had to go through. Thank God it's over, it's behind me, and it's something that I don't hide. I don't hide anything that's happened in my life. It's part of who I am, and I had a really shitty situation. A lot of people don't know the full details of the case. They just go by what they read in the media, what
Hmm
they see in newspapers, and without getting too political, But one of the things, one of the quotes that I have to support Trump on is when he says fake news. You know, people read a headline and they automatically assume there's a lot of things that were wrong on my case that a lot of people didn't speak about, and it's really nice to see that what's going on in the Northeast and the country, but especially in the Northeast, with Governor Cuomo signed over the police reform. Because one of the main things that they are going to do is that they're making it mandatory for the police officer. And I have family member, and I train a lot of police enforcement. I have nothing but respect for what they do. But one thing always against, and this talks specific. I'm giving you something very. This is a juicy one right here. It's very specific to my case. Okay, had this reform been signed into my case, I don't even go to trial. Right, disciplinary action of police officers make it mandatory to the public. Right, meaning if there's this police officer that has a track record, right, let's make sure we're able to see it. Because in my specific case, the gentleman that was in charge of my case had an interesting. No one talks about this, right? Had a very interesting issue where New York City, he was found guilty. He wasn't found guilty. I'm sorry, because they settled, right? This officer fabricated evidence against a homeless guy, sent him to prison for 4 years for, guess what? Long and behold, commercial robbery. Right? So you do the math. The same officer that dealt in my case had a commercial robbery guy do 4 years. The guy said he didn't do it. The city settled because it was found that he was fabricating evidence against this case. My argument was the evidence on my case was also fabricated. Have we had this reform that are doing now due to the George Floyd case, my attorney would be able to go to the jury and say, wait a second. Mr. DaSilva is arguing that this specific officer used something that is not his. And look at what we have here. On his file, this guy has done this before. What do you think the jury would have said right then and there?
I mean, yeah, if there's history, then yeah.
Now, let's just go back a little bit now. Before this was signed in by Governor Cuomo, we weren't allowed to bring that up.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So, which goes back to the George Floyd case. This guy had 17 prior disciplinary actions. He shouldn't have been a police officer. To begin with. Right?
Yeah.
He had that, right? This guy should have been. Again, I don't want to get political, but if we're going to use common sense here, and he had a shooting too. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know the details of that one, but someone got killed. That guy should have. I'm not saying not every different case, but once we're able to start lifting these things, I think that's a big step in the right direction. Not making any accusations, not accusing any. All I'm saying is, if I was able to use disciplinary actions from the past, my case wouldn't even got to it. The media never spoke about that. No one ever spoke. It was just the headlines, MMA, big bad tattooed MMA fighter, criminal bank robbery, So a lot of people didn't know details of the case. I wasn't able to speak about it.
Yeah.
Because I was in the middle of a trial.
Yeah.
But that's just one of the many details.
Yeah.
I was never arrested. A lot of people don't know that either. I was never arrested. I turned myself, right? So just let's use another common sense, right? If I'm reading the papers and I'm reading this and I'm thinking to myself, the guy's accused of bank robbery. They're saying he has all this money. They raided my house. I wasn't home. No evidence, no mask, no guns, no weapons, no money. Nothing was found, right? Now, we go to his house. We're looking for him. He's not home. Let's see. Common sense says, right? I could have tried to leave. Instead, you know what I did? I went in. I called. I said, wait a second. Wait, you guys got it wrong. Let's straighten this out. I turned myself in, right? A lot of people don't know that because the headline says arrested.
Yeah.
So in people's mind is, oh my God, they locked him up. They went to his house. They found all the evidence. Now he's going to go to jail for 25 years. There's a lot of things that were incorrectly stated in my case. And what upset me the most was that, and that's why I don't mind speaking about it, is that once it was all said and done, whereas you didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah.
After the fact, you didn't. Before the fact, 1 million articles. After the fact, 0. Not one of the outlets. They went as far as, I think it was TMZ Sports. They went as far as, I was getting home one day. They went as far as saying that I was coming from a shopping spree with the money. Like, are you lying about my location?
Yeah.
You know, and
Wow.
I had to, so mentally, I had to go through a lot, man. A lot of people don't know. I had to sit there and keep quiet, kept my head out, be positive. I got two kids that look up to me
Yeah.
and put up to court. Never missed this. Here's another thing too. A lot of people don't know. I was out on bail, right? Who gets accused of bank robbery, which is a major felony, and gets released on bail for $0? What does
Yeah.
that tell
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know what's it's crazy that I mean the thing about news, and I know I mean I talk I don't even really consider myself a journalist because I like to write stories about fighters and the stuff that you guys do. I think that makes for building the sport and it you do a lot of positive stuff now. Like I mean the stuff that we've talked about and gone back and forth like none of that ever makes it to the papers. No, those
Not one.
stories.
That it's funny. Let me bring that up. Sorry to cut you off. That's another thing too. It was bad It was an MMA fighter. All the pictures they posted of me was fight pictures where I have the mohawk and my tattoos showing. They did not one time did they said I volunteer for the church in my community for the past, I would say, Shayla's 15. I would say the past 6 years. I voluntarily, no pay, has coached basketball, soccer, softball, baseball, every sport you can think of. I've coached over, I would say, 500 kids in a month
Mhm.
lifetime. Okay, my part of my community service was that I had to volunteer and do something like that, which I was already doing before CAS. So my probation officer was like, "Wait a second, you've been doing this already?" Correct. No one knows. Not one
Yeah.
time. Like you said, they never made the paper. Not one time did anyone say. Not one time did they post a decent picture of me with my family. Not one time they mentioned I've had kids. Not one time they said I like all the positive stuff. Not one thing, man. Not one. I had to stay quiet. I was like, all right, no problem. So
Yeah.
that was the toughest part, having to read all the bad things about you. And again, this isn't. I'm in the entertainment business, like it or not, fighting is entertainment,
Yeah.
right? Like in terms of like it's a sport, right? So you people, the whole savage persona and the mohawk, people not they also didn't say that I have a criminal justice degree,
Mhm.
right? Like I had a
I
three
didn't
point
know
nine,
that.
yeah, I had a 3.97 GPA. You know, I people don't even know I got a college degree. Um, Again, not one time did they speak about that. All this positive. I went to the school with John Jay College of Criminal Justice, where they had the #1 recruit for all police officers and every law enforcement. My school is basically on law enforcement. I
Mhm.
support the law enforcement. I train law enforcement. I do. I have family members in law enforcement. I'm not against the police. I'm for the police. I understand. I understand that not every bad police. There's not every cop is a bad cop, but not one time did they touch on that. It was always bad. And the video that they kept posting, the weigh-in picture, because I'm a cheat. Oh, he's cheating. It was
Yeah.
everything negative. As they literally went and found as much negative things that they can about me and try to paint that picture of a fucking badass, excuse my language, badass, marginal criminal MMA fighter. And people that don't know me, unfortunately, read that stuff, and that's what they believe. So
Yeah.
you can't allow that to affect you.
No, you can, and it says a lot about how. I mean, no matter how popular the sport gets, I mean, I know it's on ESPN now and things like that. You know, mixed martial arts and combat sports in general always has to carry this weird badge of negativity because of what it is. Oh, it's violent, and especially MMA, they've called it cockfighting. Boxing has had its hurdles in the past too. I mean, just as a whole, it seems like there's always this thing that never makes it to the public eye, and I mean that's kind of why I do what I do. Like I you need guys like to talk about the positive thing in the sport, which is when I saw you had a fight. You said you got to fight Bruin. I'm like that. This is a story that needs to be told. And given the fact that your location and stuff like that, I knew you would have some stuff to share about just trying to maintain and keeping as a teacher of martial arts to other people and kids and stuff like that. Just I know you'd have a story that needs to be heard as far as moving forward and getting through this thing as a whole. I mean, you wake up every day and try to put up something positive. So that's why I wanted to get you on before you even mentioned the fight news, just because of your position as a martial arts instructor and teacher and coach. So I mean, with, I mean, I know the fight is not set yet, and you can't say much because of where we're at and the region that we're in. But like as far as returning to teaching and coaching and stuff like that, like do you find yourself or are you getting stuff sent to you as far as like protocol, with taking temperature, cleaning and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
So the main thing for them is first, right? You know how it's breaking up to regions.
Yeah,
Right, New York was broken up to different regions and
yeah.
then different phases. I believe the gym is phase 3. We're heading to phase 2 on Monday. So I
Okay,
think in the next 3 weeks, maybe the next month, I think we'll be open. And yes, I did receive protocols from corporate, the gym I'm at now. So they're gonna do like temperature checks. I'm sure they're gonna have a limit of people that can be in the gym. I just don't know how you can monitor that when it comes to jujitsu.
mm,
What they're gonna probably do, I think they're most scared of is lawsuits. I know the guys I train, they'll sign a blank waiver for me if I ask them.
yeah,
I think what they're gonna do is they're gonna have a lot of different waivers, and they're gonna make sure to say, look, by training jujitsu, you're gonna be at risk of contracting COVID because you're in contact with someone, right?
yeah,
I can see like hitting the bag in the kickboxing and the boxing able to do that. But jujitsu, you're gonna have to risk the fact that you're gonna be able to get in contact with it. So it's gonna come down to and out of 100 guys, I'm gonna say 100 guys are gonna be willing to start back to train. Are they gonna have protocols? Absolutely. Are they willing to train? It's so simple. No one's putting a gun to your head, right? Listen, this is the risk. This is what you're gonna do. Do you want to get back? I got guys messaging me every single day. Let's get
yeah,
back. Let's get back. They're ready to back today. So do
yeah,
I think it doesn't matter the protocols. I'll follow whatever the guidelines are. But I think that when it comes down to the waiver, it's going to be like, look, this is the risk. Are you willing to take it? And look, if you want to take it, you take it. If you don't, you don't. And
yeah.
there'll be no hard feelings. Like, if you don't want to train, don't train. But I think for the majority of the guys like myself, I'm going to be training. I'll train tomorrow.
Yeah, no, that's why it's funny when you were mentioning it, I started laughing because I thought about what I told my instructor. I said, you want me to bring my own thing, take my temperature and show it to you? I'll do it. Like, so, but yeah, man. I mean, I think it's great that you got that. Hopefully, you can get fighting soon, wherever it is and wherever it's at. And I appreciate you sharing your story, man. I mean, I feel like you never really get enough of a platform to tell your side of things. So I'm glad that I could at least do that for you. Um, and hopefully enough people will listen, man, because I mean, fighters and stuff, the sport, combat sports. I mean, no matter how popular it gets, we never get a fair shake. I mean, even the whole culture, the guys that write about it, guys that train, guys that fight, it's always someone's always looking down
Yeah.
at it as a whole. So I mean, not.
Yeah, you hit the nail right in the head, right? What you said. No matter how professional the sport looks, could be on ESPN, it still has a negative stigma to it. But I will say this though: the nicest guys I've ever met in my life, the guys I would bring into my house, the guys I would bring around my family, are guys I met through martial arts school. Doesn't matter. The nicest guys I've met was through martial arts. The stigma, right? I get why people who don't understand the sport have that, right? If a UFC fight goes on, right, and the guy just grapples and no one gets hurt, they won't show that in the highlight. Now, if Tony Ferguson slices somebody's face open, there's blood dripping. What do you
Mhm.
think they're promoting? That's what they're going to promote because they're trying to get that. Oh my God, what a dangerous sport! I've been in there enough times to understand that. Yeah, there is risk to it. Yes, it is dangerous. But you know what? What about football? You're literally tackling people. You see guys getting paralyzed from it. And it's a major sport. What about boxing? Continuous head trauma, right? You could get knocked down and get a concussion, come right back up and fight again. So the stigma is because of the entertainment aspect of it. People are trying to sell an image of blood and gore. The UFC itself, like look at a highlight. When you see a fighter's highlight, they show like
Yeah.
him knocking somebody out cold. They don't show him submitting someone. Like, I mean, maybe if he's a grappler, but for the most part, if I have a highlight, I'm gonna use me specific, where I'm knocking somebody out cold versus if I'm putting someone in a chokehold, they're gonna promote the knockout 10 times more. They'll show 10 knockouts before they show one submission.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I mean, it's what they're trying to sell. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's why I think education helps a lot too. But I mean the one thing it's weird that we're joking around about the stuff we talked about on social media. I mean, given your location and the stuff we've been through with the initializing of the beginning of the pandemic, like it's kind of good that so you have a fight that's in motion, but as far as timing with training and stuff, you know what I mean? Like we've been, binging stuff on TV. There was a point where we
Yeah.
weren't training. So where are you at physically as far as like your weight and all that?
So thank God I've been training myself every single day. So
Yeah.
5 days a week, Monday to Friday, I train myself. So that part. What I think is going to be missing, and again, I think also for my opponent, so it's going to be fair to both. But the extra bodies, the work with like a room with 20 guys where we're rotating a Shark Tank where I'm getting different looks, and
Mhm.
that's what's missing. The timing, the actual time. So yeah, I'm hitting pads with one guy, maybe two guys, but the actual gauntlet of going through multiple different training partners, I think that's the part that is going to be missing the most. But in terms of conditioning my weight, it's really good because I'm training my. I can run, I can go outside, I can go to the gym. So all that stuff is good, but I think the timing of the actual live sparring, live rolling is what's
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's definitely. I feel like it's hard, but I mean, given your history and the people you know, I'm sure you'll get it done, man.
Yeah, I got
Uh,
enough time. I'm fine.
cool. So anyway, Sergio, thank you so much. I mean, if there's anything you want to plug or shout out, or let folks know where to follow you. Which I
Yeah,
mean, to the folks that listen to this, Sergio's a good follow, man. I mean, he's funny. Especially during fight nights, watching fights. I mean, I appreciate your analysis when the stuff you put out there. I mean, just put it out there, man. Whatever you need to plug.
yeah. First, again, I'll repeat what I said when I started. Thank you, Ed, for taking the time, for having me on. My social media's handle is at the Savage, THESAVAG, and then the number 125 because once upon a time I was 125er. So at the Savage 125, and yeah, man, I appreciate the shout out. Just want to thank this guy, David Fish, who's my attorney. He's a good friend of mine. I don't just say attorney; he's like a family member. He literally saved my life. I'm not here if it's not for him. My family, my wife, who's been through the whole time, stuck by me. My kids, they're my rock. My teammates, still haven't been able to train much with the guys at Long Island MMA, but those guys have done a lot for me throughout the years, especially Ryan LaFleur, former UFC fighter. Ryan's helped me behind the scenes more than anyone even knows. The guy, I love Ryan. And yeah, just can't wait, get ready to fight. And that's it, man. Thanks for the platform.
No problem, man. And I mean, obviously, when you can't do more details, I mean, we should definitely do it again. I like talking to you, man. It's the first time we talk live out off of social media, so I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
no doubt, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you.